야, 다. 어디, 도대체. 야는 거기 시카시지. 벽에 신인데 좀. 죽을다. 수교가. rangyuna sugyunin zhuzhida kemendo. 야, 다 더리. 아니 최저가 돈에 샤나니. 아니 좀 된 대기 왜 룽기스뭐. 아니 파고전에서 뒤신 강중신스. 딱 가다 로지고 돈에 원래 전에 그게 쓰지게 되지 차대기 아래. 야호로 person 신셔야지. And the perceive 차베젤이야다. 배 갈레바 연구진세. 되는 거라서 벽에 라변서에 소소소소 지 크도 그 단다할 때 상담마다 대천부서 상담때 마당에 서로지도 패셔서 샤레. 대단하야. 아주 미직디 다 의상 도때문에 간다시 필이 영성로 뒤에 아니 말한저다 남주 근주된 주신 셔대하기 어다 베스디디 오알이야 직주체 되니 아니 소소지 최대 리숑 진짜셔야지 말한저 게이 술도 여대와 진짜지기다 아 타네 첩식이 펀부 나서 용기여르데 얘네 미리 직주신 대대하지 종이물이다. 다 다든지 걸이야. 아주 강해 강라 다 대대가래. 제디네 대별로 동작하실 생기 아주 편민 닝도다. 편민 남주 되기 롱그 주주 강에 뒤에 아주 동린시 토게지. 변나라 지금 강에 어디 땅에 그냥 직주를 주고 있어. 직주다.
So I'd like to speak a few words in Tibetan today. From the point of view of Buddhism religion, of course, Tibet, the land of snow, is a nation which was prophesied by the Buddha himself. And it was, Tibet is historically a magnificent country. And one of the nations, three nations, which were known in the world in the past, those of China, Tibet, and Mongolia, so one of these, of course, and gradually, although Tibet was a magnificent country, great country, in time there was decline in the administration of the nation, and it's quite clear if you look at history that our leaders, religious as well as political leaders, have lacked vision for the nation, and because of that we have a lot of drawbacks were caused, and then as a nation Tibet was remained, the whole of Tibet remained one nation under the usage of one language, Tibetan, which is the language used for the
one script.
The same script was used and has been used in the Kanjur and Tenjur literature of Buddhism, and
the one script which Kanjur and Tenjur sort of mentions already. So that all over Tibet, and even Ladakh, and many areas. So I said that I think really become one important factor. The entire Tibetan people remain as a one entity.
And so it remains united. But then today, of course, Tibet is going through a difficult time. However, I'm sure that since Tibetans have this willpower for over thousands of years,
French.
for over thousands of years to live together, and I'm sure that we can face this challenge.
Okay. So, I think in order to save time and also direct sort of the contact, it may be useful to use my broken English. Don't criticize. Dalai Lama's English is very poor. So as a result, our last, I think more than 60 years, it's a new situation. And the worst thing, like during Cultural Revolution. So they really try to eliminate systematically, but and use various methods. Some cases use force, kill, arrest, torture. Some cases brain education, brainwash through education. And then some cases give some money, more sort of economy sort of help. No matter what kind of method, over 60 years, Tibetan spirit remain very firm. If Tibetan people inside Tibet, not that kind of sort of spirit, then I think Chinese government, now no need concern about Tibet. Now, since almost 60 years, and then since we become refugee since 59, I think at that time, I think some of these Chinese hardliner leader, I think 1959, once they crash Tibetan spirit, then they feel now Tibetan issue because of disappear, solve. I think at that time, no Chinese leader feel after 50 years, still you see this issue remain. And then inside Tibet also, mainly Tibetan inside Tibet, their spirit very, very strong. So that is the reality. And then regarding Tibetan problem, every Tibetan, whether they live Tibet or India or America or Australia or Europe, wherever they live, their body with Tibetan blood. So we cannot, forget that. From birth till our death, it is our moral responsibility to think, to make an effort like that. Then meantime, I always telling, when I met some Tibetan supporters, I telling them, you are not necessarily pro-Tibetan, but rather pro-justice. Our issue is just issue. And then furthermore, there are many people, many community who are fighting for freedom, but many cases use violence. Now in our case, no matter how difficult it is, our principle is non-violence. And also one side victory, other side defeat. No. Always think, mutual benefit, or common way. Right? Because firstly, I very much admire the spirit of European Union. No matter what sort of different nations, but common interest is more important. So therefore, European Union develop. So main reason why I admire European Union is if European Union not develop, then last a few decades, I think some killing among these small nations. But since the European Union materialized, so at least it become guarantee no violence or because of the violence among these sort of small or different nations. Now Great Britain now left. I don't know what is their reason. I think maybe too much emotion. Sometimes emotion becomes too much, and then the human intelligence sometimes become, not active. Then many wrong decisions come. We Tibetan also, I think, we should not carry our work with too much emotion, but rather reason. So therefore, I think this Great Britain. Any English? Englishman sudo. Oh yes, begitu. My long-time friend, yes. Ka. Oh yes. So the English mind may be some exception. But I feel, the spirit of European Union is really wonderful. So because of my conviction, I often express, now eventually Russia should part of the European Union. And then Africa should create some kind of African Union. Then Latin American Union. Then eventually Asian Union, China, India, Japan, and some other countries. I think, and then through that way, step by step, eventually demilitarize. That's my empty vision, empty hope. In that respect, I think we can make some small contribution. Not only just 6 million Tibetan people. Firstly, we show other people, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how much we suffer, but we still keep mutual respect. We recognize Chinese people, great people, like that. So, through that way, I believe, eventually, I think the mutually agreeable solution, I think, possible. Like that. Meantime, it is important. It reminds Chinese hardliner that present policy will never solve Tibetan problem unless they start more realistic approach. This problem will never solve. In that respect, I think this kind of conference and our supporters, different world, different country, very, very essential. I'm telling you, when I met some supporters, present sort of situation, even hardliner among the Chinese officials, they develop some kind of dilemma how to deal Tibetan problem. They more or less now they feel their present policy is not effective to solve the problem. So such period, I think international sort of voice about Tibet, so that I think helpful. So this conference, you organize, I think very good. Thank you very much. Then my own or say they now commitment I want to share. Since 2001, the political responsibility mainly carried by elected political leadership, Professor Samdormuchi. His face always looked very serious, not like my face. Then 2011, I totally retired. All political responsibility now carried by elected political leadership, young, energetic, modern educated, and at the beginning, his Tibetan a little bit inadequate. Now, year by year, some improvement. So, not only myself is retired, because of the retired political responsibility, but also 4-century-old tradition since 5th Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama institution eventually automatically become head of both temporal and spirituality. Now that formally, proudly, voluntarily cease. Now in the future, even the Dalai Lama institution remain in the future after me, but no longer any sort of significance of political responsibility. As the Chinese still do not understand that, so they consider Dalai Lama, because of 15th Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama's reincarnation is something they show more serious, more interest than myself. I have no interest. But the Chinese seems showing some serious concern like that. So in any way, now here, it seems to me some of the religious institutions in the past, not only Tibet, but many world, is a special sorority power. And that the elite leaders or people in the society, which is feudal system. So close link. So French Revolution, French royal family disappear, and the Russian Revolution, the Russian, because of the king, royal Tsar, eliminate. So there is some, I think, reason. Sometimes people consider, you see, these sort of, or say, cases is some kind of anti-religion. I don't believe that. What is the religion? Religion is love, compassion. That's a religion. Nobody can against that. Even animals appreciate love, compassion. So then, what is the case of these sort of Russian Revolution, Bolshevik Revolution, and French Revolution? I feel against religious institution. That institution very much sort of linked with the feudal system. So in our case also, the Dalai Lama institution, say having sort of, because of the full power, I feel that's outdated. Since my childhood, I really, admire the democratic system. So our own sort of system, I feel something wrong. So after I take the political responsibility, within few years I start reform committee, trying to reform, but not successful. Because the Chinese, they have their own way reform. If reform initiated by Tibetans themselves, that naturally will be realistic. So that may become a hindrance of their own way of reform, like that. So then 59, after only 59, we reach free country. Then at once we start the work for democratization. Then eventually, as I mentioned earlier, elected political leadership come. Like that. So therefore, now, since I totally sort of retired from political responsibility, so my small energy, as a Buddhist monk, we always pray for entire sentient being. If you really, seriously, sincerely praying for entire sentient being, then you must do something. The other galaxies, you cannot do anything. Only this world. And within this world also, the limitless sentient being, insects, birds, animal, fish, we cannot do anything. Just prayer. When they are passing through painful experience, we just sometimes with tear and some prayer. Otherwise nothing can be done. If you really sort of serious concern about the well-being of entire sentient being, then the reality, the practical level, only 7 billion human beings on this planet. Because we same brain there, and no matter different language, but there's a language we can communicate. So therefore, now I totally dedicated my rest of my life trying to create happier humanity. Today's world, I think a human being everywhere, they remain in materialistic life, with materialistic culture. We can't blame them. They come through materialistic oriented, material-oriented education. That education, you see, just think about material value. Material value means only sensorial level consciousness use, seeing, hearing, so on. And then smell, taste, and touch. Touch including sex. So this gives some kind of temporary satisfaction of sensorial level. That not remain long period. A mental level, some experience which brings inner strength. And that automatically reduce fear and peace of mind. These inner value, inner experience, not relying on sensorial experiences. So, in the West, among the scientists, when we discuss about mind, they only sort of say, their view, when we say mind, consciousness, they only refer the sensorial level consciousness, not mental level. So therefore, now I'm one student of Indian tradition, particularly Nalanda tradition. Beside Buddhist teaching, there are a lot of explanation about human consciousness, about human mind. And also you say how to tackle our emotion. This we learn from Buddhist text, but this subject should not consider part of practice of Buddhism, but this should consider academic subject. These days I am telling the hygiene of physical actually you see include our education. Hygiene of physical. Now hygiene of emotion must be there. So real troublemaker is not a physical illness, but mental thing. All this present world, some crisis, actually our own creation. Why? Too much emotion, too much negative emotion, and a lack of respect others' right, others' interest. Just one-sided. Then no hesitation to kill. Like that. So therefore, in order to create happier world, peaceful world, some knowledge about our emotion in order to create inner peace. So in that respect, I think the tradition, which comes from Nalanda tradition, I feel something very relevant to today's world. So I dedicated to create sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. And the reality also, now nature teaches us, we should act, we should remain as a one community, one human community. See, the global warming never make a distinction because of the national boundary or religious boundary. And then also the global economy beyond this boundary. So that's reality. Under that circumstances, now, see, we should develop a sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. In spite small disagreement, basically we are same human brothers, sisters. We have to live together. So that is now my commitment, remaining how many years, I don't know. Maybe 10 years, 15 years. No. So remaining my life, I dedicated, try to promote this inner value without touching religion. If we touching religion, then there is differences. Or then the second commitment is promotion of religious harmony. This I always is telling people, India is the living example. You see, the over billion population, there are a lot of problems, but in spite of that, religious harmony, really wonderful. Small sort of group, some problem, but that's understandable. All Indian, over billion, not bodhisattva. So ordinary people there, so naturally some mischievous people must be there, so some problems here and there, that's understandable. But overall picture, I think this country, beside homegrown different religious tradition. Oh, finished. That's God's bless. So, beside different homegrown tradition, all major religious tradition come to this country. Zoroastrianism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So because of the the spirit of harmony, the Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, his family background Hindu, but he deliberately took pilgrimage to Mecca. So this, you see, the Sikhism is a production of 1,000 years of India's tradition, because of the harmony or mutual respect, a different sort of tradition. So, since this big nation, complicated nation, can maintain religious harmony, so why not rest of the world? If you use human intelligence and from wider perspective, religious harmony is very possible. So my number 2 commitment is promotion of these things. Then regarding Tibet, the political matter, now politicians, the elected political leaders, you see, they carry the responsibility. Now my commitment or responsibility is firstly Tibetan environment. Because of since many years, I have, when I was in Tibet, no idea about the importance of environment. Only reached India as a result of meeting some environmentalist, a scientist. Then I realized, oh, that is very important. This planet is our only home. See, when we think about the future generation, future century, this present world ecology, very important. So oh, okay. So we human being on this planet, naturally we have the responsibility to take care about the environment. So when the great nation, United States, oh yes, great nation, United States, I always consider the leading nation of free world. The present president is not much pay attention about ecology. He withdraw Paris, Paris. So that I feel some reservation. But in any way, American people elected him, so I must respect. Okay, like that. So that is my number 1 commitment about Tibetan issue. And then second, Tibetan culture, including Tibetan language. Now I realize Tibetan language, Tibetan script is the best language to explain the Nalanda thought or Nalanda knowledge, including logic and psychology or these things. So last now several years, I have serious discussion with modern scientists and including psychologists or logicians, philosopher. I realize our knowledge, which we kept over 1,000 years, originally come from Nalanda, Nishanta Rakshita. He himself, great philosopher, great logician. This is not just a historical saying, but we can study. We actually studying. You see, his writing. So through that way, we know, oh, that person is such a great philosopher, great thinker, great logician, like that. So we, as a student of directly from Nalanda through Shantarakshita and Kamalashila. So therefore, I now realize these knowledge very, very, important, relevant in order to tackle our emotion. You see, the emotion, you see, in order to sort of bring some peace, emotion, drugs, alcohol, these are, you see, not proper way. Or just rest, relax, a few moments. The problem always there. So only thing is how to deal problem with peaceful mind, and a fuller knowledge about the problem. Anything we can't see the reality from one dimension, one kasa, or one dimension. In order to know the reality, we have to look 3 dimension, 4 dimension, 6 dimension. In order to investigate that, your mind must be calm. Agitated mind, you see, cannot investigate the reality. Too much anger, too much desire, we cannot see. So therefore, this ancient Indian knowledge is about mind, about emotion, how to tackle, how to bring inner peace. This, I think, now previously is a part of the religious practice. Right? Now this should take academic subject like that. So in that respect, I totally. So for that, Tibetan language is very, very essential. So the Chinese language, you see, cannot explain such a sort of detailed way. And then modern Hindi, no hope. And of course, traditionally, some Buddhist sort of text among Kanjur and Tenjur, I think original language maybe in Nepalese. Now modern Nepalese, no hope. So only Tibetan language. So therefore, you see, the preservation of Tibetan knowledge with Tibetan language, in order to preserve Tibetan knowledge, Tibetan language is very, very important. So preservation of Tibetan language, not only interest for 6 million Tibetan, but this is interest for entire Buddhist world, and furthermore, entire 7 billion human beings. I have this sort of confidence from our knowledge, we can make some contribution of humanity in order to bring inner peace, with not through prayer, but through sort of the because of certain technique, try to reduce anger, selfish, too much extreme selfish way, self-centered attitude, and then narrow-minded. All these, I think, from Tibetan knowledge, we can make some contribution. Already I notice over 30 years, I have series of discussion with scientists. Number of scientists now really appreciate our sort of knowledge, our sort of technique to tackle this destructive emotion like that. So I really feel really worthwhile to preserve this knowledge and including this language like that. So these are my commitment regarding Tibet. And politically also, I think as I mentioned earlier, over 1,000 years since I think 9th century, right? 7th century, 8th century, then later part of 9th century, Tibet disintegrated. Since then, I think Tibetan as one entity is only through our Buddhist Kasoda tradition, like that. So in the future also, so long Tibetan Tibetan spirit remain there, sooner or later we will find mutually understandable sort of because of the solution. This problem will never solve by the attitude of you, we and they, and ready to fight, kill. Through that way, never solve. Look, other part of the world use more force use more violence, more hatred, more anger, never solve problem. Even the United States, very powerful nation, militarily also very powerful, but through use American military power, try to solve some problem, never achieve. That's quite clear. So even this big nation used force, never achieve their goal. So therefore, every problem on this planet, including our problem, I think must solve with respect to other mutually acceptable way. Mutually acceptable solution. Like that. So therefore, so that's my view. Thank you. Question now?
We've talked yesterday and we will be talking about a strategy for the next 5 years and also the next 50 years. How do we make sure that we keep the Tibetans inside Tibet at the forefront of our mind? They're not here, they're not represented here, they live a completely different life from Tibetans outside and the community here, and they're key to any solution that may be found in the future. So how do we make sure that whatever we discuss, whatever we advise, is beneficial to them? Thank you.
I think I already mentioned Tibetan spirit. Even children, young students, I think Tibetan spirit very strong. Some cases, younger generation, I say, more stronger. Older people, they too much suffer. So sometimes, little bit sort of because of the pessimistic way. But younger generation. So, and then, if I may I say so, the Tibetan people, I think almost more than 90%, including those party members, trusted me. I don't know what percentage trust him, but I think people those trust him also because they say they because of the eyes of they support him. Therefore, any sort of because of the activities of voice, I think certainly they feel whether they express publicly or not, in deep inside, they're very much looking forward community and outside in a free world. So there's no problem. Nowadays, you see, different sort of, as you mentioned, as because of the different kind of social media, yeah. So that's I don't think any problem. Ninja, Ninja.
Your Holiness, you're absolutely right when you say that the Tibetan spirit is indomitable. And I feel not only very sanguine, but absolutely confident that the day will come soon when you will be returning to Lhasa with honor, along with your... And there was a time when the world was very much active to speak in support of Tibet. And I'm talking of the European Union, which went to the extent of passing a resolution saying that if the Tibetan question is not solved within a certain period of time, I think it was 3 years, then they would recognize the Tibetan government in exile as the representative government of Tibet. After that, all those voices seem to have fallen dead. Now we have been agitating for the last so many years and decades fought the freedom of Tibet, what we call in India as Tibet Mukti Sadhana. So I would like to know what is the way forward, what you envisage, and how long will it take to realize this dream of free Tibet. I feel sometimes dejected. As I said, I am very sanguine, but sometimes with my advancing age, and I will be 82 next month, I feel dejected about it. I don't want to be so. So what is the way forward? Thank you very much.
I think you should answer that. I think I just want example. The doctor or physician who carry treatment for patient. So the doctor cannot say, oh, you must take this medicine, judging the illness of that patient. And accordingly, give medicine. So similarly, we are a very small community. In 1959, 60, early 60, we appealed United Nations. And then Pandit Nehru, we asked Indian government, please take sponsor survey, sponsor Tibetan issue at the UN. The Pandit Nehru say, that's difficult. And anyway, one occasion, Pandit Nehru told me, United States will not go to war with China in order to liberate Tibet. So sooner or later, you have to talk with Chinese government. So eventually, his advice became very realistic. So then, 1974, we decided now not seeking separation. Sooner or later, we have to talk with Chinese government. Then, 1979, as my elder brother, now he too old now. He received one sort of message from Chinese government. They want to see him. And he specially come to see me. At that time, I was in Kanpur. Then I immediately told him, yes, go. Because we already sort of set up our mind since 74, not seeking separation. So we have full confidence we can talk with Chinese government. At that time, the Deng Xiaoping also then stated, besides question of independence, anything can be discussed. So we start dialogue with Chinese government. As a result, 4 fact-finding delegation have the opportunity to visit Tibet, and also Tibetan from inside Tibet come to India, and from India go there. Before that, completely cut out. Like that. So these are our past experience. So our emotion, we want independence, and pray to Buddha. I think last several centuries, I think pray to Buddha, I think more or less failed. We have to follow more realistic way. Answer your answer.
I think I cannot add more than what His Holiness said. Our path is non-violence, and the process is the middle way approach, which is a rational, moderate, reasonable aspiration. I think the Chinese leaders will come around and become wise and bold, and hopefully they will have liberal policies towards the Tibetan people in the coming years.
Then our supporters in different parts of the world. You see, I think many places, Chinese businessmen, Chinese student, and some professors, always there. So you should keep close, try to reach out these people on the people's level. I have one sort of story. Say, one day, aeroplane from, I think, Chengdu to Lhasa. See, among the passenger, some Tibetans there, and they noticed one Chinese officials, and then one Chinese businessman. You see, they discuss. There's some Tibetan, they heard the Chinese officials. You see, he criticized Dalai Lama, spiritist like that, and very bad reaction like that. Then the Chinese businessman, he refused. I had the opportunity to visit different parts of the world. So Dalai Lama, not that kind of person. So among the Chinese intellectuals, you see, more and more, now for example, I think 4 years ago, you see, we noticed about 1,000 articles wrote by Chinese in Chinese language. Few hundred from mainland China, remaining overseas Chinese. About 1,000 articles regarding Tibet all support our middle way approach and all criticize their official policy like that. So the government level is something different. The people's level is more important. Logically, government within sort of a few decades or a century change. But people always remain there. I always believe and also expressing world belongs to 7 billion human beings, not kings or royal family or religious leaders. So world belongs to the people. Each country belongs to the people of that country, not these leaders. So therefore, Chinese case also, ultimate ruler of China is the 1.3 billion Chinese people. So therefore, I always telling when I met Chinese, and also some generous of the media people, I always telling, 1.3 billion Chinese people have every right to know the reality. Once they know the reality, they also have the ability to judge what is right, what is wrong. So therefore, censorship carried by government is immoral. After all, Chinese people are the ruler of the country. Government, it is immoral to to give distorted information to the people like that. So therefore, I think while government, some contact with government level, we need more patience. And what we can do, and whenever we have the opportunity meeting some Chinese scholars, students, I also have the experience in Australia, and mainly in America, number of occasions meeting with Chinese student. When we first met, some of them a little bit nervous. Then when I explain our sort of thinking, our commitment, then immediately their face change. So our thinking, our policy, is transparent, nothing. I'm not seeking independence. There also, you see, some reason Tibet materially backward. Tibetan also is want more money. Sometimes I jokingly say, express publicly, number of Tibetan illegally immigrant to America or Europe, these are not seeking teaching, not seeking spirituality, but seeking dollar. So we also we love money. So remain within the people's world of China. As far as material development is concerned, we get a benefit. Provided we should have full right to preserve our own culture, our own language, and because of the maximum sort of that, because of care about the environment. And then okay, remain within the people's world of China. And now many Chinese Buddhists, so we can help them. They can help us to material development of Tibet. So okay, then in the spirit of oneness of humanity, like that. Do you have something?
Yes, and we'll give the chance, opportunity to others also. Your Holiness, we discussed the very first panel was on middle way approach, dialogue, and how to reach out to Chinese governments to resolve the issue of Tibet peacefully. So as far as city is concerned, Tibetan people are concerned, we are fully committed to middle way approach, and that's the best and the only path that we see, and nonviolence is the only path that we see. So we are fully committed and we'll keep discussing this. Thank you. Freddie? Taiwan ki shitang
Your Holiness, I'm Freddie Lin from Taiwan, a member of Taiwanese Parliament. And first of all, I want to share good news with you that you might know that there is a Mongolian and Tibetan committee in Taiwanese government that was established by Kuomintang. So it considers that Tibet is a part of China with this committee. So first of all, I want to share good news with you that the new government will make this committee gone next year. So there will be no more this kind of institution. Yeah. And the second thing is that, we shared with you last year that there's Taiwanese parliamentary group for Tibet now in the parliament. So now we work very hard to help the Tibetans to come to Taiwan, get education, study Mandarin, all these kind of things, and get exchanges with Chinese, because there are lots of Chinese students in Taiwan, and also lots of debates online in Taiwan between Taiwanese and Chinese. So the question is that I feel like a better Taiwan is ready to have Dalai Lama visiting Taiwan again. So when will be the best timing for you to think for Taiwan and Tibet for the benefits for each for both sides to have you visiting Taiwan, and we sincerely welcome you to come to Taiwan again.
Thank you. I have been Taiwan at a few occasions. I think 2 times, 3 times. So originally, so every 2 years, I want a visit there. Mainly, there are a large number of Buddhists there. So now in non-Buddhist country, in West, out of my respect, there are other tradition. So I do not want to carry more more teaching, Buddhist teaching. For example, I think 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, in France, Strasbourg, some Tibetan Buddhist organization in France, they commonly also asked me some teaching. Then I think one full day I give some teaching. In that hall, I think nearly 8,000 French people there. I feel a little sort of uncomfortable. This is not Buddhist country, Judeo-Christian background. So therefore, teaching Buddhism, I feel some kind of interference there. One example, one time, one Tibetan group in France, with the help of one German millionaire, about $1 million, he ready to donate and build some Buddhist center in France. Then two of them came to see me. Then I asked them, this is not Buddhist country. So constructing some grand or Buddhist institution or something, it's not relevant. If you want to help to build such thing, then either Thailand or in Bangalore, in India, something different. I told them. And later, one occasion in Switzerland, I met some Buddhist group in Switzerland. I also mentioned, because I heard some Tibetan Lama getting some land. So this, I do not think is proper. A non-Buddhist country trying to propagate Buddhism is not good. So out of mutual respect. So whereas in Taiwan, Huarin, Chinese, I think traditionally Buddhist, and the People's Republic of China, historically, is a Buddhist country. So one clear sort of indication was wherever Chinese community there, and previously including Calcutta, some Chinese community there, Buddhist temple there. So therefore, now in China proper, no freedom. Now only a place where Han people sort of place and with freedom is only Taiwan. So I decided every 2 years or so, I want to Taiwan and give some teaching. Then I usually call our sort of common our 가서 기계에서는 가서
Common teacher.
서로 가서
Common boss.
a common teacher or common boss. I think common teacher. I think usually we Tibetans say ngazu 기계, teacher, quite tough teacher in Peking. So we both need some permission from there. Without that permission, you see, you want me there. I always, whenever I met some Taiwanese, they always ask me, sometimes with tear. I also very much sort of feel, since the student or people who want to know more about Buddha Dharma, then it is my responsibility to share my sort of experience like that. But with the political reason, difficult. So for the time being, I think last few days, I give some teaching mainly come from Taiwan, Taiwanese Buddhist. Because over 1,000, more than 1,000. So many of them, I give some ordination, and then some teaching like that. So as soon as some sort of green sign come from Peking, then I'm ready to go there. Till you see red sign, then you also, the Taiwanese government also finds some difficulties. Even you see, sometimes I thought the statues inquire. you visit Japan, sometimes it's too far, too long. So stop one of the airport in Taiwan. When I inquired that, any possibility or not, even that also feel difficult. Like that.
Last question.
Last question, quick question, and because we're over time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Your Holiness. My name is Laden Teton. I'm a grassroots activist for the Tibetan struggle for many years and work very closely with many people in this room. I just wanted to offer to you something from, I think, many of the Tibetan youth that we work with. We've been talking about the rise of nationalism and extremism around the world, and we also all have agreed this is a very dangerous thing. What I want to submit to you is that as young Tibetans who care very deeply about our nation and the future of our struggle, I believe we are a new kind of global citizen while also being Tibetans and fighting for our nation. And raised in TCV, raised inside Tibet, raised in the West, for us, the Tibetan government, the CTA, you are our leaders, this is our first government before any other country that we live in. And for the future of our struggle, we believe nonviolence is the only way. And for whatever may come, we don't know, changes in China, what opportunities, our efforts will be fully directed in training in the strategic nonviolent discipline that we fully believe can bring change inside Tibet, whatever that may look like. More rights and freedoms for Tibetan. A free Tibet maybe one day, but whatever that is, the other reason that we do this is to also give strength to the position of the Tibetan government under your leadership all these years. We see ourselves as one part of a movement and as a whole, and we will maintain that commitment, and we will invest in training young Tibetans, and we will never give up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for committing to nonviolence in pursuit of a goal. I know the younger generation of Tibetans are far better educated and have far better exposure than the elder generation. The elder generation, though less educated and less exposed, but their commitment, their determination, and especially their faith and loyalty to His Holiness was absolute. And as long as we can continue those commitments of the elder generation, the values of the elder generation, and with the strength and the education, the exposure we, the younger generation, have, definitely, collectively and together, we can fulfill the aspirations of Tibetans in Tibet. That is to see the return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet and freedom for the Tibetan people. Thank you.
I want to add something. As I mentioned earlier, my own commitment, till my rest of my life, is a preservation of Tibetan culture, Tibetan language. So, I think our supporters, our friends, I think whenever you have opportunity, firstly, as I mentioned earlier, you see, because reach out a Chinese friend, students, and so on. And then occasionally, you should, at universities, if possible, some sort of seminar about the Tibetan culture. What is relevant about Tibetan culture with today's world? As I already mentioned these things. Then environment issue. And then also Tibetan history. As I already mentioned. You see, more discuss, a seminar, not a political meeting, just an education because of the field, including Tibetan history. Invite some Chinese scholars, Chinese historian. And I think the because of the different group of Taiwanese, some scholar about Tibet, Tibetan history, Tibetan culture, some Chinese from Taiwan, some Chinese from mainland, and some other overseas Chinese. And let us sit together and discuss, not a political matter, just culture. How much useful if Tibetan culture kasoda keep alive, no, preserve alive. And then past history. Some, I think, Tibetan, like the Shakaba's book, I think not complete, not, I think, genuine kasoda, objective. Pena anda pyo rangzen seta namra sadi zipo rang duinde yigijore. Di peji rangzen seta peji yomarda. Da tizu chaydi ko shib sago chigi ya pe meji mebe sorubchiri tizu chaydi. Chazanga does emotion does yebe sorubchitu. So like similarly in Chinese, Tibetan history wrote by Chinese, also a lot of distortions. I had one sort of one information. Say, many years ago, when Jiang Zemin there, they show one karot, exhibition about his past history, relation between China and Tibet. So when you see some scholar, I think mentioned, previously the Chinese government say, since 7th century, Tibet become part of China because of marriage. Very weak. Then since 13th century, Tibet become part of China because of Mongol then ruled China, and short period Mongol also ruled Tibet. So since then Tibet become part of China. So that also not a kind of convincing reason. So this is some, I think, scholar, you see, mentioned to him. Then he responds, oh, not necessary to say since this century, that century, just they say, from early period, Tibet become part of China. Too simple. Like that, you see, without anger, without biased view, objectively discuss about past history and the value of Tibetan culture or Tibetan knowledge. Now, I think the ancient Indian knowledge, Nalanda masters' knowledge, these Nalanda masters, they not just, you see, follow Buddha's teaching by faith. Buddha himself, you see, told us, scholars, monks should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment. So many Nalanda masters rejected some of Buddha's own teaching. If you accept this Buddha's teaching, it goes against reason. So we have liberty to reject that. So that kind of sort of tradition, Nalanda tradition, we kept that. So I often, you see, telling some my friend when I give some Buddha statue, I usually describe this person to Buddhist founder of Buddha Dharma. One aspect, great thinker, like quantum physics, he already taught. Then, great, also the psychologist, philosopher and thinker. And then, because of this, his advice, this person also I consider ancient Indian scientist. So this knowledge, I think, very relevant 21st century. Therefore, I think discuss about the essence of Nalanda tradition. So some relevance to today's world. I think today's world, some kind of mental crisis, emotional crisis is there. 7 billion human beings, nobody wants suffering, problem. Yet, our self created a lot of problem. Why? A lot of destructive emotion, beyond control, or uncontrolled. Therefore, you see, millions of people unnecessarily suffer because our own sort of creation of these problems. Yet, scientists now, many scientists say, basic human nature is more compassionate. So 7 billion human beings, our common experience, we all come from our mother. We all nurtured by mother's milk, mother's affection, mother's love, including today's troublemaker, they also come that way. And then it's a common sense. I think we know, as I mentioned earlier, if I visit a different place, angry face, then people don't like it, I think. Isn't it? That's common sense. You see, when we meet people with the feeling, we are same human brothers, sisters, then immediately, you see, we become very close, like that. So that's our common sense. I think you also, each of you also, I think, have experience when your neighbor facing little negative face, and I think you have to go quite fast when you are passing through that neighbor. When the neighbor, you see, always, you see, showing smile, showing sort of the closeness feeling, then even, you see, in spite of some hurry, you see, you may spend a few minutes to say hello, hello, like that. So that's common experience. Then, deeper way, you see, the scientific finding. More compassionate mind, open mind come. Too much anger, too much self-centered attitude, your mind close. So, as a result, more fear, less self-confidence. So, more anxiety, more irritation. That brings anger. That destroys our peace of mind. Other hand, more open mind, transparent, then less fear, more self-confidence. Now, this is now scientific finding. So, on the basis of common experience, common sort of sense, and scientific finding, I think we can share to more people. Warm-heartedness is the key factor, whether religious person or irreligious person, doesn't matter. So long we are human being, we are a social animal. You see, it is much better keep warm-heartedness and ultimately based on the sense of oneness of humanity. Thank you.